investing in real estate can be one of your smartest moves to build assets and fight inflation. There's also a way to invest in real estate that gives tax benefits that can make it even better. And these are in something called QOZs, or Qualified Opportunity Zones. What are Qualified Opportunity Zones? This was passed in the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act of 2017 to attract investment and development in low-income areas. There are 8,700 QOZs all over the country. And you might think these are in places where you wouldn't want to invest your money, but some are nicer than you think. I live in Scottsdale, and there's a QOZ in Scottsdale. So why do you want to invest in a qualified opportunity zone? Well, the first thing is you have to have a gain in order to invest in a qualified opportunity zone. So just for the math, let's say you had $1 million gain, and that gain is going to cause you to pay taxes of $200,000. If you invest in a qualified opportunity zone, you don't have to pay that until, get this, April of 2027. That's 4 years from now. Do you think you could do some things with money for 4 years and make some money? In fact, even if you invested in treasury bills, you could make 4 or 5% in those 4 years. But then this gain, here's the other magic. You invest that, and as long as you don't sell that for 10 years, let's say that 1 million grows to 2 million. In 10 years, that entire extra million that you made is tax-free. So you get to defer the $200,000 for 4 years, and you get all the gains in that investment over 10 years tax-free. Now you might say, well, I want my money out. Do I have to have my money stuck in there all that time? Well, just like other real estate investments, often investments in QOZs will do things like a cash out refinance, and that will get you your money in maybe 3 years or 5 years or 7 years, at least some of it. And now, if you're really good at tax, you might say, you know what, Jim, though you mentioned that, but when I invest in a qualified opportunity zone, don't I start with a zero basis? So if I do a cash out refi, isn't that taxable money to me? Yes, unless when this investment was made, there was qualified non-recourse financing. Because qualified non-recourse financing actually is at-risk basis, which means the distribution is likely going to be tax-free. But one gotcha is you want to make sure in the operating agreements of the partnership, if you're investing in a QOZ fund partnership, that actually allows the distribution or the allocation of the qualified non-recourse loan to the limited partners in the investment. This is a big box you got to check to make sure that's going to be treated appropriately. The other advantage to real estate is something called a cost segregation study. So cost segregation studies, if you're a real estate investor, you know that it allows you to accelerate depreciation for the tax benefits. But in this case, you can have cost segregations, again, flowing out to you as a limited partner, making sure that's in the operating agreement, and using that for tax purposes. And another benefit is that cost segregation, if it's your own QOZ fund, if you happen to start your own QOZ fund, that cost segregation, you can reinvest that within your fund, and that's never recaptured. So when it's sold after 10 years, you don't have the depreciation recapture. The only other way to avoid that besides a QOZ is if you do a 1031 exchange. And obviously those are very powerful as well. So QOZs, I want you to keep that in mind. One thing you want to be especially careful about is don't let the tax tail wag the dog. If it's not a good investment, just because you get all these wonderful tax savings, I don't want you to do it. Now, when can you invest in a QOZ with your gain? If you had a gain, let's say you sold Apple stock, it's 180 days after that point, you can put it in the QOZ. But when you put it in the QOZ, if you actually control that fund or you're going to invest directly, you have an even longer time frame. So let's say you have a gain and it's in a syndicated real estate deal. Well, that syndicated real estate deal, at some point, they sold that property. So you have 180 days from the date they sold the property, or 180 days from the end of the fiscal year for that partnership, or 180 days from the first tax filing of that partnership. So here's what that means in reality. Let's say you had a syndicated real estate deal and they sold a property in January of 2022. You could take that gain and reinvest it within 180 days or until July of 2022. Then there's a blackout period until year end. And then year end, you have 180 days from year end or 180 days from the first tax filing, which would be April of 2023. So you had your gain in January of 2022 and didn't have to had all the way until September of 2023 to invest that gain. So there's a lot of advantages with QOZs. You want to, again, make sure that they're good real estate deals. You may want to invest in a fund for simplicity, or you might want to create your own fund or invest directly in a QOZ property or a QOZ business. The last thing to think about is what QOZ properties qualify. They have to be one of three. They have to be vacant, they have to be substantial improvement, or they have to be ground up development. So what is vacant? The definition of vacant is less than 20% occupancy for 3 years or more. Substantial improvement has to be 100% increase in basis. So let's say you bought a property for $5 million. $1 million was the land, $4 million was the building. You have to put another $4 million in to be substantial improvement. So that's a lot. And then finally, ground up development, which is pretty self-explanatory. So if you qualify in those ways, if you have a gain that you can put into a QOZ, you can delay the taxes that you would pay and invest that money along the way, and you get tax-free growth over the 10 years it's in the QOZ property after you sell. I hope you found this valuable, and I hope you use this in other strategies to get the most tax-efficient investing outcome that you can possibly get. I appreciate you listening. I hope this was helpful.